Russia has long believed that hybrid attacks remain its exclusive weapon of pressure and that Europe would not dare to respond. But as the New York Times has discovered, governments in several EU countries have begun to take covert action against Russian provocations. This is the first sign that the Kremlin is losing its monopoly on sabotage. The New York Times, citing its own sources, reports that several European countries that are most often subjected to Russian attacks are already conducting covert operations in response. The details are not disclosed, but Swedish Defense Minister Jonsson confirmed that this is not only about strengthening defense, but also about actions that complicate Russia's work. Jonsson emphasized Russia operates in the gray zone between the Cold Peace and the Cold War. Now, this zone is no longer one-sided. Europe, albeit cautiously, is ready to use mirror methods. Previously, Moscow was confident that its status as a nuclear power protected it from retaliatory steps. Now, even the possibility of using NATO's Article 5 in the event of hybrid attacks is being discussed. The alliance's Secretary-General Mark Rutte said, "The reaction will be devastating. When it comes to hybrid threats, we are not naive. Steps from confiscating Russian assets to increasing support for Ukraine are being discussed. Drone incursions into Poland have forced the closure of airports in Warsaw, Rzeszów and Lublin. Another case of EU airspace violation has been recorded in Romania. European diplomats also link the attacks to an attempt to hack the GPS system of the plane of the head of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen. Russia's NATO neighbors are rapidly losing patience, and it is dangerous to underestimate them. These are countries that not only have discipline and selectivity in their actions, but also have the resources, knowledge, and technology to carry out sabotage attacks on its infrastructure and economy, even in the deep rear. Today, Moscow has a colossal border with the alliance: Finland, the Baltics, Ukraine. And if the West really decides to use its full potential, Russia will face problems, the scale of which the Kremlin prefers not to even voice. The Russian military is trying to reach Kupiansk through underground pipes. This is reported by analysts at Deep State. The entrances to the pipes are in the area of Liman the First. To move around, the Russian military use specially designed laydowns on wheels and electronic scooters where the height allows. According to analysts, it takes about 4 days to reach the vicinity of Kupiansk. Special places for rest and provisions are made along the route, so organized groups of the enemy, without serious losses, get to Radkovka and then move south into the forest, which they control. After that, they spread out in Kupiansk and reach the railroad. The Deep State believes that Kupiansk itself already has positions for pilots to take off. Problems are also created by the lack of forced evacuation of local residents, who are now in the same houses with the enemy, because of which many places cannot be hit. In addition, the locals share food with them, Deep State analysts wrote. Now a video has appeared online as if the same pipes are being used to pass to Pokrovsk, but it was actually filmed near Kupiansk, military analysts assure. Russian troops first used an underground pipe to get behind Ukrainian positions in Avdiivka in January 2024. The second time the Russian army used the same tactic in March 2025, they tried to approach Sudzha in the Kursk region through a gas pipeline pipe. Thus, sabotage and assault groups of the enemy moved along a branch of the gas pipeline in order to gain a foothold in the vicinity of the town of Sudzha. The enemy forces were timely detected by the air reconnaissance units of the DSHV, the communications department of the Command of the Airborne Assault Troops of the Ukraine, said. Recall, at present, Kupiansk and its entire community remains under the control of the Ukrainian armed forces, despite Russian attempts at information provocations. Kupiansk is Ukraine. Kupiansk remains an unconquered and unbreakable Ukrainian city. It is under the control of the armed forces of Ukraine, and not just Kupiansk, but the entire Kupiansk community. Andriy Besedin, head of the Kupiansk City Military Administration, stated. According to the head of the Kupiansk City Military Administration, all these reports currently remain mere rumors. They are mostly Russian propaganda, spread through information inserts, such as videos by certain individuals trying to display a Russian flag in the city center. But these individuals are being eliminated. It is still unclear whether they were Russian soldiers who managed to enter the city or civilians who remained there, the so-called waiters, because unfortunately there are such cases as well. The fact remains, whether a Russian soldier or a waiter, all will be eliminated for such actions or held accountable according to current legislation, Besedin emphasized. The poll conducted by the Levada Center in August shows that now only 27% support the war, a fall of 4 percentage points since the beginning of the year and a drop of 13 percentage points compared to August 2024. The share of respondents who believe peace negotiations with Kyiv should be initiated has risen to 66% compared to 61% at the beginning of the year and 50% in August last year. The highest level of support for the war was in May 2023, when Ukraine first began attacking targets in Russian cities with drones. Back then, 48% supported further fighting and 45% supported negotiations, according to the Levada Center's data. The war has increasingly touched the lives of Russian citizens. The poll found that 58% of respondents reported being directly affected by the war. Among them, 30% said a relative or acquaintance had been killed, and 28% said a family member or friend is currently serving. In total, around 17% of Russians surveyed said they had lost someone, while another 16% reported that someone close to them is still fighting. Ukraine remains high at 78%. Of those, 47% said they definitely support the war, while 31% said they mostly support it. Meanwhile, 15% of respondents said they do not support Russia's action, 7% definitely, and 8% mostly against. Ella Paneja, a sociologist from the New Eurasian Strategy Center, said that Russian society remains largely indifferent to the war, and it has few true supporters. Concerns primarily revolve around mobilization, the rise of organized crime, and the return of veterans. Polish news website Rzeczpospolita reported, conducting opinion polls in Russia on the war in Ukraine poses challenges to their organizers given the harsh, repressive state policies targeting those who voice any dissent to the conflict. In this case, Moscow said that peace talks with Ukraine were on pause as US President Donald Trump again warned he was fast running out of patience with his Russian counterpart, Vladimir Putin. Trump's efforts to bring the 3.5-year conflict to an end have faltered in recent weeks, with Russia digging into its hardline demands and refusing to halt its ground and aerial attacks. The new standoff came as Russia's army staged major military drills with its key ally, Belarus, on NATO's border, exercises that have spooked the alliance's eastern flank after the downing of Russian drones in Polish airspace this week. 3 rounds of direct peace talks between Russia and Ukraine, as well as a summit between Trump and Putin in Alaska, have failed to make any progress towards ending the fighting. Moscow's army is grinding forward on the battlefield, and Putin has vowed to carry on fighting. if his demands for peace, including Ukraine ceding yet more land, are not met. Our negotiations have the opportunity to communicate through channels, but for now, it is probably more accurate to talk about a pause in talks with Kiev, Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov told reporters in a telephone briefing. Trump has repeatedly threatened Moscow with additional sanctions if it does not halt its offensive, but has failed to follow through, frustrating Kiev. It's sort of running out and running out fast, but it does take two to tango. Trump told Fox television when asked if his patience was being taxed by Russia's refusal to end the conflict.